Здравствуйте, дамы и господа. Мы находимся в Зелёной гостиной Большого театра, и сегодня у нас в гостях Каролин Карлсон. Carolyn Carlson, I am very pleased that you came to our green room, and I would like to speak about yourself. I understood that for you it is very important somehow that your ancestors, your parents, are from Finland. Why is it so important?
Well, I grew up in the Finnish heritage. We had these Kalevala meetings every weekend in San Francisco and in Berkeley. And I remember at least 2 times a month doing an improvisation to Sibelius music or some Finnish folk music. So for me, I grew up with this tradition. You know, great Finnish pastries and coffee. I was drinking coffee since 12 years old, as most Finnish people do, maybe Russian. And incredible memories that have always stayed with me. I mean, although I was born in California, I mean, I'm a hippie from the hippie generation.
Yes, that's what I also was.
Yes. But somehow this Finnish heritage has always stayed with me.
But somehow, when I saw yesterday some bit what you did for Diana Vishneva, and this atmosphere, and this tree, and basically the attitude towards the wood, or towards the main thing of life in a sense, like water, or like fire, or like earth, somehow very much, to my mind, close to the Norse culture. Though of course it's international, it's everywhere. But when we see here some theater performances from Baltic countries, let's say, these are the symbols which are sort of coming through. Do you feel it that way?
Absolutely. I don't know, maybe this is from my grandparents' blood. This is a memory. And I mean, the last work in Bordeaux, I had a tree, a moving tree, and now Diana had this tree. But for me, this is the symbol of life.
But isn't it
the
like
tree
this?
Which grows upward. And for sure, Finland, Russia, Tarkovsky's films, you always have the symbol of trees.
I was thinking that it might come also to Edda, to Yggdrasil.
Yes.
This is like tree of life, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So it comes from sort of background.
Well, you look at anything, the Kabbalah. I mean, all the ancient myths deal with trees. Yes, and especially the Norway, Sweden. You have the hangman hanging upside down from the tree, which is a great symbol of sacrifice.
And we were speaking right now before the camera went on, and you said about your father listening to Boris Godunov. Was it for you through him that you first came to the theater, in a sense, to the music, to the opera, to the dance?
Perhaps. We were living in the country near Fresno, California at this time. We had an incredible yard with the pond in the end of the yard. And for me, this was kind of a mystic journey. I don't know. I saw this weeping willow tree in this pond, and it was always dark. So I had this first probably mystic journey. And then in the evening, my father would listen to Boris Godunov, and the room would be very dark. And my father was a good vodka drinker from Russian-Finnish heritage. And I would pass the room, and something attracted me. It was this deep mystery. And there I found life is more than ordinary. Life, okay, I can look at this glass of water, we're drinking water, but there's something mysterious and transparent as this water is. And that's where I discovered, I think 12, 13, that I found my way in an unordinary space. I would say a mystic journey which I have followed all my life.
And when you moved to New York, I understand it was 60s.
Yes,
it was 60s. Very much time of hippies, right?
Absolutely.
The beginning. And in the theater field, like Living Theater was closed.
For sure. Living Theater was a shock to me. I saw, I saw the Living Theater. It was fantastic. You know, they come naked on the stage and says, "Where's your passport? You haven't got a name. You have to go." And I came from California, very nice. My eyes were opened. And I said, these guys have something to say. You know, everyone, nudity, they think it's a big deal. They were doing this in the 60s. And I was so impressed by what was happening there. And I had the chance to meet Andy Warhol and all these great people who were working in the 60s. And being a hippie with a long dress, and I wore the flowers. I was at Haight-Ashbury, I did the whole thing. And still, it was incredible. Not only did I carry the mysticism, but this generation was about love and about positive interchange.
But also some special
people.
attitude to earth, to life.
Absolutely.
To flowers in this sense.
To flowers, yeah.
Nature.
Everyone was giving flowers. I gave many interviews. Now I don't give flowers, I pull the roots out. I go to the very bottom. And this was a great era. I remember in New York, we were doing things in Central Park. I was doing things at Henry Street Playhouse with Nikolai. Everybody worked for free. Nobody asked for money. Okay, let's go to Central Park. I had cello players. Okay, let's go. Let's do this. Everybody had a loft. You could be naked or wear clothes. It didn't matter.
Right.
And it was such an open exchange between people and very positive. And at that time, the criticism was always positive. And like, hey, man, I don't quite get this. Maybe you should do this. But everybody respected everybody's work. And I remember seeing Philip Glass when he was first starting. He did music in 12 parts. You know how long this was? 12 hours.
Wow.
We were all laying on the floor. Sorry, everybody had their joint or whatever. I mean, this is the hippies. But it was incredible. And this, everybody stayed. And this was revolutionary then.
And you mentioned yesterday Bob Dylan. Did
Yes,
you
Bob
meet him?
Dylan, of course. Bob Dylan, playing in the East Village. I must say, I studied Bob Dylan poetry when I was in school, also University of Utah. I was studying philosophy and poetry, and we studied Bob Dylan. I think he's one of America's greatest poets. I mean, he's not like Rilke or Baudelaire or these great Russian poets, but he spoke for the 60s, 60s for sure, and 70s.
But do you like poetry of like Robert Frost or Whitman? Or
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I love poetry in general. I mean, you could take Rilke, Baudelaire, who's very heavy, Rilke and Bob Dylan on the other side, very country. But I love all Bronsky. I mean, this very out person. But I love all kinds of poetry because you're out of the ordinary. Again, I'm kind of branched in this mystic cosmic realm, and I like things that are transparent, rather flou. So for me, life is a mystery. And that's why poetry never gives an open end. This is the beginning and this is the end. It leaves everything open.
I understand you also were speaking how important is solitude to understand oneself, to understand maybe there's even relation with yourself in this world. But, and I understand now that you were reading a lot of books, of course, and not only poetry, but also philosophers.
Yes.
But in your daily life, did you meet some people who would have, you would say, or describe them as your masters, as the people who teach you something through their vision, through their attitude to life?
Well, first of all, my master, Alwyn Nicolai. I was in New York with him for 7 years, and he was a revolutionary figure at this time. Because as a choreographer, he did not work with steps. He worked with ideas and concepts. And for me, this was a philosophical revelation. I was going to stop dancing. But when I met Nikolai, I mean, I had revelation. Because he was abstract. But through him, I found poetry. And I must say first Nikolai. And one of my very big influences when I discovered Zen Buddhism in New York.
And that's in the 60s when you discovered.
Yes, absolutely 60s. And this is where I had a great Zen master. I was taking Tai Chi. I discovered doing calligraphy as a meditation, which I'm still doing today, haiku poetry. And this is where, also I was with the lighting designer John Davis, who was also a philosopher and lighting designer for Nikolai. So we branched out together in this kind of philosophical, calligraphic, poetic atmosphere.
Do you continue this Buddhist?
Absolutely. I can't say I'm Buddhist because I don't want to belong to any religion, but I practice, and I'm very branched into Tai Chi, Qigong, and I love also Buddhism because it always refers to nature. Nature and man, heaven.
And also you like being how to say, something through which life is passing.
Absolutely. And all Buddhism, you're not talking about God, you're talking about a way. We are the way. So there's not some big guy up there. I mean, for me, it's very important, because it's another thing in Buddhism that I like, because we control our own life, and we have our own karma. So...
there is one Russian poet whom I like very much, Joseph Brodsky, who was saying that our bodies in the space, it's like hieroglyphs. And you yesterday also said something that in a hieroglyph it's like a movement in the space. When I studied in Japan, one lady gave me some special present because she said this third stroke is so beautiful for the European mind.
Really?
It's very
you were doing
difficult
calligraphy.
to understand.
Wonderful.
And like really different attitude to all of this, to the words also, because words has all of a sudden visual image.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you feel it with our language as well, that the words got some visual images for you?
Yeah, because I write poetry. So I select my words according to a lot of my visions too, because people ask me if my poetry and my poems relate to the dance. The calligraphy poems all relate to the dance world. But sometimes what I write can't be danced. Like my favorite thing I wrote, "We are what we leave behind." Ooh, that's a quite heavy statement.
Right.
And
it's difficult to express.
Yes. And but I like what you said also about a gesture. I like because dance is an ephemeral art. But if you do a gesture and you're totally there, you leave a trace in the space. But if you just do the gesture, it doesn't exist. Because dance only exists for those people who remember. The curtain closes. But what do the public come away with? They come away. Of course, they can't remember everything. So if the dancer isn't precise and in the present moment at all times, you don't leave a trace. So this is the very Zen.
Maria Zelo, she said that you teach her sculpturing in the space. But you worked a lot with Petra Gala, staged for her numbers, and with Maria Zelo, now with Diana Vishneva. Is it important for you to have such a perfect tool as a classical trained great ballerina? What are you looking in human beings to work with them?
First of all, I've worked with many classical dancers and great contemporary dancers also. But I feel very close to classical dancers because I have a classical base. I started ballet from like 7 to 15, so I understood the technique. And the thing incredible about classical dancers, they have a line amazing because they work on a verticality. You have an arabesque, and this is precise and sculpted in the space. And so I appreciate classical dancers because of their great technical feats. But when I worked with Petra Gala, Maria Zelo, Diana, I want to know who they are. And I put the technique away. Of course, their technique is great, but I'm also interested in what they're about, what their soul space says, or what they would like to say. Of course, I choreograph, but this with Diana, I was questioning her all the time. Like you're giving me an interview, and she was quite, oh, I've never thought of that. So it's interesting because no one, I don't think a choreographer has questioned her about, like we were talking about a solitude. What is solitude for Diana, who's totally surrounded always by people, and she's a star, and she's here. And it's interesting because she said, sometimes at home I wear my husband's shirt, Constantine, which I thought was great. So, you know, I can put a shirt on and I can sit down and just be myself a moment, because I think they have a house in Estonia. So she does find time to be alone. And one point, it was very beautiful. You'll see in the show, she's picking berries from her grandmother's garden. Because one of Tarkovsky's father talked about this inner scream going back to our nostalgic memories. And we all have nostalgia is stronger than love. I mean, because we have this memory that we know never comes back. So I asked Deanna about this, and she says, yeah, my greatest memory was my grandmother telling me to pick berries, and I would go alone in the woods and pick berries. And it's incredible what she does. You'll see on the stage, she's eating these berries, and she says, thank you, Grandma. And so this came from her, and I said, how do you pick berries? So this very special memory came from her. And also, when she's at the table, she's not only working on the table, but she's like a map. She's mapping out her memories. And I told her, I said, map out your memories. So she is the one who, I didn't choreograph that. She did her own map. And I always love that my dancers, it's also their piece. Because I'm looking in the public, but I want this to be their own. Not Carolyn Carlson choreographed it. I'm not concerned. I would like them to live this. So, which I think Deanna lives the piece.
Does it mean that your pieces can live only as long and the dancers who perform them are here with us?
Yeah, that's pretty much my philosophy. Actually, Pietra Gala was great in Segna. Maria Agnes took it over. Totally different. But
you worked with her, right, in this transition?
Who?
You.
Yeah, sure, with Maria Agnes. But she was totally different. She was long and tall and blonde, right. And Pietra was fire. She's Corsica. I mean, she's from Corsica. She had black hair. She is a kind of a wild character. So we had to change things in terms of the solo version. But for Deanna, this would be hard to give to another person. I wouldn't give it to another person. Because this is especially Deanna's, I say personal but universal. I mean, we all have our moments of solitude. We all have our moments of reflection, sadness, joy. I mean, I think the emotions are universal, but they're special to Deanna. But you know, I believe in this. I'm a person. You know what? Dance is so ephemeral, and all this life passes away.
Right.
All life is transparent. So I don't care about what's going to happen to this piece. I mean, I think Deanna will perform it as long as she can perform it. But now, what's incredible? Okay, I'm talking to a film. This will stay on YouTube, and I hope they film this. Deanna's piece will stay because it's filmed. It will never replace the real. But now we have access. I mean, I have a numeric dance channel. I have 50 films on the numeric dance channel. I mean, they're not all good quality because they were taken with videos.
But it still gives you
But they're
some
records. Yeah, some impressions. But just by the nature of dance, you cannot... Contemporary. Okay, ballet classic has their swan legs, petit pas, you keep this forever.
Or whatever.
Contemporary dance is not like this because I think the pieces live with the choreographer. And also, like Merce Cunningham, I so admire him. When he passed away, he said, my company stops because he's not there. What an admiration. He was Zen. He was a very Zen person.
Yeah?
Absolutely. He was a Zen Buddhist also.
But Martha Graham, for example, it cannot stay also her heritage.
Well,
not really exists.
this company still goes. I hear it's very difficult because Martha's not around. But the thing, Merce and Martha Graham, they have repertoire. From the Paris Opera, from a lot of companies, and also Béjar. They have a lot of repertoire, so that goes on. And like Pina, I mean, Pina will still work another 5 years with the company, but
as long as
the
people
company,
who have this heritage in them,
yeah, for sure. But her company's in their 50s now.
Right.
They're 40, 50, 60s. So we don't know what's going to happen in 50 years. I mean, sorry, in 5 years. Because also, I know with Pina, very good friends. I just love Pina. She was... I admire Pina enormously. And...
in which year did you meet with her?
It's funny, in the 70s. Somebody came from me at the opera. Yeah, we were in our 30s. And someone from the Paris Opera, they said, do you know Pina Bausch? No. And someone went back and they said, do you know Carolyn Carlson? No. But then we met in the years and we saw each other's work.
I also was wondering how you met Lieberman and why you accepted his proposal.
Oh, Lieberman was... I knew him from Alwyn Nicolai. We were in the Hamburg Festival. We had Nicolas Chauffeur, Pierre-Henri. Alwyn Nicolai did the choreography. And it was the idea of Ralph Lieberman. So we did the piece, and Rolf Lieberman just said, "Who is that lady?" I mean, you know, at that time I had charisma, and Nikolai said, "Stop shying." Thank you. And so Nikolai saw me again with Rolf Lieberman, and then Rolf Lieberman was the director of the theater. And he asked me to do a work for the Paris Opera. And I said, being very American, I said, "No, I'm not ready, but I'll do a solo." You know, the hippie, I'll do a solo, why? So he said, "Okay, you'll do a solo." I can't tell you. It was the Edgar Varese music. I worked 3 months in the solo with John Davis. It was a niche, half man, half bird. And 3 months, and now I do 2 hours in 2 weeks. Somehow it was called Density 21.5. All the Paris public, they said, "Who is this?" So they called me the bird in the gilded cage, and I was on the map. This was '74, and the Paris people just embraced. But then, being very American, and the French. The next year, '75, we were going to go back to New York. And I said, "John, we're going to go back to New York. Everyone's so slow here. We're just going to go." You know, you needed a pair of scissors at the opera. It took 2 hours, and I wasn't used to people, you know, having lunch. They have wine at the afternoons and lunch. And I said, "I just need a coffee to go. I'm looking for it." So for me, it was kind of strange, the mentality. So, and Lieberman asked if I would like to form a group at the opera.
The research center?
Yeah, research center. And consequently, I said, "No, John, I'm going to go back." And John said, "With a chance like this, you're going to stay." So I said, "Rolf, I'll stay." And now this was the strangest event, because this was '75. And Lieberman made me an étoile.
His decision.
His decision, which I had never studied in the Paris Opera Ballet, and you know the ballet.
Yeah, it's so rigid.
If they don't have an étoile, they're gonna like this. So he made me an étoile, and it didn't work out with the dancers because they refused me. So I opened the doors, and we had people coming down in the basement. We had hundreds of people there. It was just great. So that was the group de recherche. And
where was it located in Paris? This group of
Paris Opera.
Inside the opera
Absolutely.
itself, in Garnier.
It was downstairs, the Rotonde des Abonnés.
Oh.
You have to go down and see it. Yeah. And it's funny, we're in the basement. And modern dance was always in the basement. And I know Nikolai came to teach there, and we found musicians in the metro, you know, who would just come for free. People didn't pay. It was 6, 7 a year, 2 years there. And then
trade union were not saying you anything.
No, because Lieberman loved me. He opened the doors. He said, "You'll do your work." I know the Paris Opera was against for 2 years, but after the 5th year there, they all came downstairs.
Really?
Pietra, Eric Voon, John Willifried, and Jean Gieserichs. So it was okay after that. But I must say, I was born under a star to be there, because this was the first time in the history of opera that there was a contemporary dance group in an opera house. And now, of course, Paris Opera, Hamburg, whatever.
Could you mind to say some words about Rolf Lieberman? As I'm very interested in him. I think he's one of the key figures as opera directors in the whole history of 20th century.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, Rolf Lieberman was a composer, a great composer. He was an innovator. He's, to me, one of the last great impresarios of the 20th century. He created the Salzburg Festival, Austria. He created the Hamburg. He came to the Paris Opera. He fired everybody. He fired everybody. He said, "We're going to do a new system." And you said, you didn't say anything to this man. He had such a charisma. He was big. What wonderful, great Jewish nose. I mean, you fell in love with this man. Such a presence. "Darling, take your seat. It's like this." And he had intuitive sense about what to do. And he said to me one time, he said, "If I don't have a risk in my life, I stop." This is what he was about. He took a risk at everything he did.
So he invited you, and he supported all these groups through
Absolutely,
several years,
absolutely.
right?
We were 5 years there. And I remember the one solo I did, opera comique. He says, "Darling, you're a genius, keep going." Because half the public was boo and bravo. Boo, go on, bravo. Lieberman loved it. They were throwing tomatoes, literally. And Lieberman just thought this was great. But see, he caused this kind of revolution, and he knew it was going to happen. So he revolutionized the dance scene. And I happened to be the instigator. And just years later, when I look back in the 80s, I realized what happened. And also I think he's remembered for bringing great geniuses like Robert Wilson. You asked me who else is my mentor. Robert Wilson is my hero. And he's the one. I did a piece with Robert Wilson and Ralph Lieberman, did the music. And I mean, Ralph Lieberman is one of the ones who initiated a work that went in the house of the Paris Opera with Robert Wilson. I mean, this guy's revolutionary. I don't know if you know Robert Wilson. He does lights, sets, his mise en scène. This guy's a genius.
Well, nowadays he's sort of accepted genius, but
Yeah,
to
accepted.
discover him
Yeah,
at that
for
time.
sure.
this is
You see,
quite a difference.
Lieberman discovered all these great people, composers, choreographers, stage designers. He worked very closely with Patrice Chéreau and this Lulu, and he took this great risk to do this opera with this small Greek singer. He was incredible. I mean, I think he was the greatest genius also to discover opera stars. And also, Hugal was
Of course.
under
And Gerard Mortier.
Yeah, Gerard Mortier, Thierry Fouquet, who's now the director of the opera. So not only that, but Lieberman formed all these great artists who were under him. I mean, in the administration, who became directors. So he was just an impresario on all sides.
So you
He
rather
was the
had a
modern
happy
director.
time in Paris. At that
Oh,
time, it was
absolutely.
rather happy years
Absolutely,
in Paris.
absolutely.
And it's interesting
was
how
like-
you can also switch the audience, right? Because in the beginning it's
Yeah.
like this,
Oh.
boo and bravo, but step by step somehow
Yeah.
it moves.
Yeah, but you know, Lieberman persisted in this way. But you know, Pina Bausch, the same thing. Are you kidding? Pina was even worse. People were really screaming at Pina. Pina insisted, and the opera of Wuppertal supported her, like Lieberman supported me. So it's interesting, Pina and I were working at the same time as this kind of revolution. And it's interesting.
Both in Paris Opera, right? In this
Yes, yes.
mid-70s.
I was in the Paris Opera. She was in Wuppertal. What's interesting, we're always comparing Pina and myself because we are both this character, but Pina's very earth, very social, and very working humanity. On the other side, I came in with this kind of poetry, this mystic, this other side, which was a great compliment, what was happening in the dance world. And I must say, thank you to Lieberman also, you know, there were people coming in for free in the opera at the concierge. We'd have 100 people in. And I came in, I found these, I have to tell this one story, Lieberman is great. I found this bagpipe player in the metro. You know how loud bagpipe players are? He was playing the bagpipes and he was downstairs and the opera stage was on top and Lieberman comes running downstairs. He says, "Darling, there's a Mozart rehearsal. Can you please stop that damn bagpipe player?" Incredible. And then I had saxophone players. But Lieberman loved this. He saw everybody coming in. And, you know, after that, we had a hat to give to the musicians who played. Because now the classes were free. Lieberman dropped a centime in there.
First gesture.
Stop that music. So, and Lieberman, he was such a charming gentleman. He was a modern day Diaghilev, for sure. And he always got the best stage designers. I mean, he was
And
a
but
genius.
basically after this time in Paris, after this adventure in Paris, you never came back to United States? You stayed in Europe somehow, no?
It's
Here and there,
strange. Because after
in Italy,
after the Paris Opera,
Stockholm.
I was thinking about going back. Two reasons. Just at the end, someone came from Italy, and they say, "Could you please go to Italy to do the same thing?" And the theater was in Venice. How can I refuse that?
Yeah.
So I said yes, which I also caused a revolution in the 80s. And also one of the best revolutions, I met a Frenchman. And so that's why I stayed in Europe. So
that was the reason.
Yeah, so with my Frenchman, we went to Venice, and he's also René Aubry, musician. And we had a son who was born in Venice. And then we went back to Paris, Théâtre de la Ville. And so my life was in France.
Because yesterday, Sergei Danilan said that you describe yourself as an European choreographer.
Yeah.
So when was this moment when you start to feel, I don't know what makes you feel Russian or European or French or American? I don't know.
Well, it's funny because it's very strange to me because Théâtre de la Ville, we went to New York with the group from Venice, a big success. And then we came back to Théâtre de la Ville. We had an agent who saw 2 of my works, and they said my work was too poetic or mystic. And I found this so strange because I wasn't on the American scene of physicality. I'm not a Trisha Brown, a Twyla Tharp, or these people. But I thought it very strange. So they rejected my work.
As being too
as,
deep in a sense.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely, I call this. It was too, and one I know, Ted Wheeler, who was there, Jed Wheeler, he said, yeah, it was just a little bit too heavy on the side. And then I went to the University of Utah. I went back to do part of Blue Lady, and they said, we never see this. So, it's strange in New York. So, I don't know, it was a period in the 90s, 80s, 90s, 2000 maybe, which is physical, I don't know where it is. So, I mean, it was very difficult for me because this is I'm American. But, I've lived in Finland, Stockholm. We have great, our touring has been in Spain, Italy. I've been all over Europe. Japan, many times Korea. So, I cannot complain.
That's right.
I mean, you can't be everywhere. And my karma has been this. I wouldn't say European choreographer. I quite like what Sergei said. Hopefully, because we've been everywhere, especially Singapore, Japan, I would say I'm for everyone, humanity. I mean, I don't think anything specific. I don't know, maybe European in the sense that perhaps in Europe they go more in for the...
I also was wondering, you start often with poetry, with words, or even more often I understood you starting by painting or speaking with a person, right?
Yeah.
Just digging in.
Yeah.
When does music come?
Almost the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, I always confide with my Gavin Bryars, who did the last work for my creation in Bordeaux, who's a great composer, a live orchestra. Even before I worked, it was based on Gaston Bachelard, Air and Dreams. I gave him the 7 sections of my feelings, floating bodies, constellations, Icarus falling, all about air dreams. So he had the 7 sections. Within the 7 sections, I gave references to Shelley, Walt Whitman, Rilke. So within those 7 sections, he had a base. This was before I saw the dancers. So occasionally, if music is original, the composers have the idea first, except for René Aubry, who's doing my next work. He already has the layout and my themes. So, and I find it's interesting. Gavin Bryars works very much through words. Poetry. René works with images. So René is the book, but René says, okay, I want to see what you're doing. So René works on visual images, as he did in Сегодня. He worked very much with Olivier Debray in the paintings.
You said it all started from the idea of smile, right? Of Mona Lisa's smile.
Can you believe? I found this crazy. Olivier Debray, he was just great. He said, this piece is based on the smile of Mona Lisa. Is that limiting? But all the things we found on that, all the hand gestures have the smile, right. The body does a smile, and this was the basic on the smile. But each section had his paintings from all over the world. You know, this victory, which you have two smiles going this way, and the Tibetan landscape with the men. Very nice. Tibetan jumping off the mountains, and he was great, Olivier. But, you know, he's a painter. He didn't know theater. He had 35 stage changes, and the lino changed 35 times. And I said, Olivier, dear,
They didn't kill you there.
you can't. No, we worked 2 years. I said, you can't change like this. At the end, we had 7 changes. But it was just great to work with him on this.
Rehearsal period was 2 years?
No, we worked 2 years.
Oh.
No, the rehearsal period was 3 months.
3 months.
Yeah. No, but we
Do
worked
you
all
accept
day.
some limited rehearsal period or not?
Limited.
Like when they say you have to stage it in 4 weeks. I don't know. Because I think it's very
Oh,
difficult.
very difficult. I had a very hard time in Bordeaux. We had 4 weeks to do this, 6 weeks to do this. And it was an hour and 20 minutes. And the ballet, you know, they have their ballet class. But I have a great assistant, Sarah Orselli, who's been with me 14 years. She's also in my company. We would work in the morning to prepare choreographic phrases before the company. It was the only way we could do it. Usually with my company, we improvise and we work all day. But I had a limited time. My company, I worked 10 to 6, plus class. Oh, the Ballet Bordeaux, they work from 1 to 6. And for me, it was, the time was nothing.
It's difficult to believe.
So, but if I know this, I'm quite organized on paper to know. I have to finish by Wednesday, this section.
But my feeling is that you work so much together with dancers that you simply need time to dig.
Yes.
That's the problem.
No, but I must say with the opera of Bordeaux, we spent 1 week only improvisation and class. This was from 11 to 6. They have a half-hour break, so I was with them all the time. And for me, they had to know where I was, what I was working on, and they had never improvised. And if I ever do, I will begin with class and improvise.
And I think that might be the greatest
Right.
output, because for classical dancers, it's so difficult to improvise. They're so rigid.
For
they
sure.
know this
For
language,
sure.
but they're not ready to move sometimes.
No, and they're embarrassed.
And to let
because
their
they've
body go.
For sure. But I think it's very interesting because, you know, in my career, I've built so many choreographers. Why? Because I give people tools. And people don't talk about a technique, Carlson technique. I give concepts. Because of improvisation, I give people tools to work with. So when they leave me, they know how to work through idea. I work time, space, shape, motion, poetry. So, and it's always a gift. I mean, I have a great group in Italy. In the 80s, they're still going. They're still teaching. But I give people away. And they all have keys to get into the language of
It's great, because
choreograph.
otherwise sometimes you feel in classical dance that you have sort of words, but people forget their meaning. While in your approach, the meaning comes first, and then comes probably gesture.
Yes.
The way you express the meaning.
Yes.
Not just the simple expression without sense in it.
It's true. I mean, it never fails to... I talk about, okay, you open your arms in second. It's too small, this video, to see my arms. But you open your arms in second. Okay, second position. But I can say you open your arms and you are touching the horizon. You are reaching infinity. Ah, la, la. You see this in the dancers' faces. And when you're vertical, you're standing between the heaven and the earth. Man is in the center. You see this incredible light pouring out of the top, and you see them going through the earth. I mean, this is through words. Because the perception, I always talk about, not emotion, perception. Percevoir, we perceive the action, the gesture. We perceive the intention. Like Robert Wilson said, it's only in the intention. You know, if my arms are going out horizontal and my intention is infinity, believe me, you're going to feel something. Instead of holding out the arms in a dead space. Oh, and I love my favorite poet, English poet, The Wasteland, T.S. Eliot. He says sometimes we only use our arms to move the air, you know, to bat the air. And that's what most of us do, we just bat the air. But if we're realizing we're batting the air, then we have this incredible intensity. Did you get this?
Yeah, I hope.
I can read a lesson.
I think it's great that after this classical training, at a certain moment, you got this feeling about yourself and this great discovery. And I think what is wonderful, that feels to me, you have pleasure to teach people. You like master classes. You like
Absolutely. No, I was given a gift, and Nikolai gave me this gift, and I have to share this. I mean, I have so many things to share. And especially in dance. You know, like when I see Deanna, when I share her this gift of, you do your own map. And she goes, my own map? But how wonderful to see this light in her eye. And I told Deanna, I don't care, don't show me your dance, show me your poetry. So she was just like, oh. So I think even for her life, maybe she goes into another step, and she can question even the future. This lady is incredible. I mean, she's what, 30? She'll be 38, 37.
Like this, yeah.
And she's pretty soon I'm going to go. And I said, are you kidding? You call me. I'll choreograph with you till you're 50. I mean, she's got, that's where, okay, the classical can leave, because, you know, on the point shoes and this, like Sylvie Galem, I mean, she's very intelligent, she's gone to the contemporary. But Deanna, she can perform till 50, 60, because she has this soul that brings out. I mean, okay, classical is such a rigid technique, in a way. Of course, you can't do fouettes till the end of whatever, but I think Deanna also realizes that she has this poetic gift of presence, charisma, incredible. So she can just keep moving. So she goes in other directions. So
just I feel here talking to you, this is like amazing path for you, the theater, which permitted you to discover something about this world and about yourself.
For sure.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I would hope very much that you will come and work
Thank you,
with Bolshoi dancers.
I hope so too. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Спасибо.
Thank
У нас в
you.
гостях была
Thank you.
Каролин Карлсон. I'm not a very physical person. I was always running away physical classes in school, etc. But this was acting classes in the United States. And we had to do, how to say, respiration and voice and movements and historical
I'm sure
dance.
you like that.
I was 20. It was such a great discovery about myself.
I'm sure.
About hands, legs, how to move, how to pose, how to breathe. Because in daily life you don't think that even breathing, it's quite a process of life.
That's why I love Tai Chi Kong. Do you know Chi Kong?
I tried the only Tai Chi. Where else?
Oh, but Chi Kong is wonderful. Yeah. There's a great TV pro. You can turn on the TV. There's this great Chi Kong director. You can do this at home. It's incredible. It's only with breathing and breath, and you make the eternal circle, and it's amazing. But I include a lot of martial arts in my class too. I mean, I think it's so important. This is 3,000 years old. I mean, Tai Chi, Tai Chi and the I Ching and all this. So it's.
And I saw yesterday how you were showing this movement with Diana.
Oh yeah.
Right.
It was very hard for her in the beginning, because she didn't get the. But they don't do this. They don't do this. Yeah.
Sometimes when I come to disco with Bolshoi dancers, some of them are okay, but some of them.
But you know, ballet is built on a vertical axis. And they're very strong. You know, they do arms and legs, but it's vertical. Well, once you say
floating
to round, I mean the opera bar round. But it's another. But some classical dancers have a gift for this already, like Pietrangala. From the beginning, she did this because she had this temperament. She was a contemporary dancer from.
Right. And of course, great coordination also.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you meet Béjar? I'm sure you did.
Of course. Oh, Béjar. Oh, actually, I did a solo, an homage to George Dunn, which I toured for 6 years after that. George Dunn, I've taught many times at Mudra. I'm still teaching there.
Yes, you're coming back.
They asked me to do a work for the Béjar company, but I'll see when I have time. But
difficult when you don't have your master.
It's hard.
Replaceable.
That's the problem with Pina's company now. They always waited every year for Pina to do work. Pina's not there. And Pina's used to say, I don't like the color of your lipstick. Exactly. Who's going to do that?
Exactly.
So, and they're thinking about having choreographers in.
Even John Neymar said to me he had many doubts it can leave after him, because he said, I see the dance, I changed so many things.
Yeah, for sure.
Who is there to do it?
Who is? And somebody asked me if I'd be interested in choreographing for Pina's company. Never. My memory is with Pina's dancers. Right. I'm not going to I'm not, you see, what's her, Nazareth, come on with the Spanish lady. She just comes on the stage and you laugh. I mean, so who's going to...
No.
And I think, like we talk contemporary, some things has to stop when the director leaves. I mean, the life is like that.
Maybe
but why do you
theater is a very present art.
Yeah.
Really, every night, right? It's just the connection between audience that night, that particular night, and what's going on stage.
But my next creation is called Now.
Now. For whom?
Now. I mean, it's only, I'm interested in this philosophy now. It's only present now, which people, see this, you know what's frightening to me now? Everybody is on their text message. You go on the metro, people in the street, everyone is connected to something which is going to be an unreal world.
Right.
Who is present? I'm looking to see, I'm interested in the metro, who's present in the moment they're sitting with themselves. Right. And it's an addiction, which I find alarming. And you know what's more alarming? People, they wake up, they do internet, they're logged in, they blog at Twitter or Facebook, and they keep going on. What did you do at 9 o'clock in the morning? They can't remember. Too much information. And I'm about, sharing. Do people have proximity anymore? They're missing proximity. You do the SMS across from the people sitting across in the cafe. Go talk to them. And this is where people are missing the present moment.
That's very true.
And everything's getting virtual. And there's going to be no memory pretty soon. They don't remember because there's too many things.
Already before, I read the Osho book, and I'm sure he's not maybe the deepest one, but for
me
Osho.
I love Osho.
I liked
Osho. I love Osho.
And he's saying your brain goes on. Whatever you're doing, you're not present, because your brain at the same time thinks about something else. Try to switch it off. Be here and now.
Be here.
And take the life as it is now, that
here
moment.
Now. Here now.
But